How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. Just wanted to uh, just touch on a few things here in this video. You probably saw in the title about cleanliness, and uh, so we're going to dive into that a little. But first, I wanted to uh, kind of build up to what I'm going to show you here with this pile of stuff I have on the table next to me. I'm not sure if you can see it; it might be off camera. But I have a pile of stuff over here that I want to talk about real quick. But first, um, this is kind of related to first aid and safety. Um, it's going to be, keeping yourself clean. I mean, we have to keep our areas clean. If we're in our home or if we're in a tent or in our vehicle, when there's a situation where, uh, things are not as they normally would be. Sometimes hygiene can get overlooked. But with that, first of all, I want to start it off and just touch on this real quick. Part of first aid and safety is, and there's been some YouTubers. I just watched a video the other day on the Survival Dispatch Network, one of my favorite channels. Guy there on there, Mike. He he was talking about optics, rifle optics, and uh, he made the comment that you don't need a $3,000 optic to improve your shooting capability. You need training, and training is an umbrella term. It's vast. It can be in all. You can be trained in bushcraft. You can be trained in water filtration. You can be trained in firearms. You can be trained in first aid and safety. And I think all of which carry, the same amount of importance. And I, 30 years ago, learned, CPR and, basic first aid, but it wasn't anything that I kept up with. I did retain most of the knowledge, thank goodness, because just recently, this past weekend, my daughter, who requires a CPR certification for her job, has to update that or renew that, every year or every 2 years or whatever. I don't know the details, but she was doing one of her renewals and signed me up for the course as well. Thought it would be beneficial, and she told me that, the reason that she thought about this was, if you've seen in my videos or if you follow me on Facebook, good friend 302 Outdoors, Bruce, him and I are planning a 3-day backpacking trip at a state forest this year. Just the two of us. We're going to go out and we're going to do some hiking and some backpacking. We're going to, park our vehicles at one location, and we're going to hike. I think it was just under or just over 30 miles in a big loop around a state forest that's, not far from us. I've been there many times. I've been going there since I was a teenager. I know the park fairly well. He and I have discussed the safety aspect of that. And if you follow him on his Facebook page, excuse me, you'll see that he just recently got a emergency communicator. He didn't get the Garmin InReach. He got another brand. I forget the brand that he got, but it does the same job. It communicates with satellites. If there's an emergency and you need to contact rescue personnel or emergency personnel, you basically just hit a button and they're alerted, and they come, they come and get you according to your, GPS location. I don't have anything like that yet. I've been looking at the Garmin InReach. I've seen it used for $150, $175, and of course it's brand new. It's right around 300 or 400. Well worth it, in my opinion. All I have right now in that kind of category is I have a Garmin. I believe it's the Glow 2. It's just a GPS navigation receiver. It connects to my phone, and it allows me to view, like Google Maps, which I'm not even sure if Google Maps works with it, because it doesn't give you an internet signal. It just gives a GPS location, but it does work with the All Trails app that I have. I did manage to get the two to communicate with each other. So, if I'm hiking, or should I say when I'm hiking, and the cell phone signal drops out, I still have, location ability, to find my way. If I were to get lost, uh, I could use that to, redirect myself back to civilization or a road or something. Um, but along with, that safety aspect comes training, because really all the electronic gizmos in the world don't do you a bit of good if there's an emergency out there and you have no training, no basic first aid, or no CPR. So my daughter, God love her, was worried about Bruce and I going on this trip because we're not young guys anymore. Um, and she thought it would be helpful if at least I had CPR training. She was unaware that I had previously gotten CPR training, but like I said, it was 30 years ago, so it didn't hurt for me to brush up on my training and take a class. I think it was about 4 hours. It was basic. Gave me the CPR certification through the American Heart Association, which is good. And then there was some basic first aid, stuff that it touched on, ankle twists and sprains and cuts and bug bites and stuff like that is, great to have, great knowledge to have. And I would recommend, anyone, search their area on the internet. There's no shortage of resources out there that can give you this kind of training. You take a few hours on your Saturday or your Sunday or whatever, and the knowledge and the training is priceless. It's a value that you can't replace because, all of the gizmos in the world don't do you a bit of good if you don't know how to use them, or, you're out there lost. So I would recommend that. Granted, this kind of stuff isn't as tactical, to watch in a video as, say AR-15s and Glock 19s and, plate carriers and ferro rods and bushcraft. I mean, that's all great stuff. That's all cool stuff. And I watch all that stuff too. But we can't forget the importance of things that are less mentioned. And one of the things I feel is kind of less mentioned is cleanliness and hygiene. Now, I didn't feel it was necessary to put both of those into one category because, some disinfectant wipes, we keep these in the bathroom, in the kitchen, for a quick wipe down or whatever. But, they last a long time. They're fairly sealed. They're not expensive to buy, and, they do a lot. For wiping down an area. You certainly want to be clean because if you're not, you're susceptible to viruses and other things that can make you sick. I mean, the last thing any of us want to get in an SHTF situation or any sort of emergency situation is norovirus, I believe is what it's called. Basically, the stomach flu, because we've all had it. Or stomach flu, you got diarrhea and you're barfing and you get dehydrated and you feel miserable. It's just not a good time. So in order to avoid the situation going from bad to worse by getting a stomach bug or norovirus or anything, cleanliness and hygiene, is, can't be ignored. So, I'll do another video on cleanliness, but I just wanted to, kind of give a quick, but here's basically hygiene type stuff. Now there's your basic stuff that I know just disappeared off the shelves during COVID. And there's probably people out there that don't even know why they bought it, but they were told to go out and buy alcohol and peroxide. I keep a fairly good supply of both alcohol and peroxide, on my secondary pantry shelf. In fact, I have a completely separate shelf unit for this kind of stuff and toilet paper and paper towels and tissues and whatnot. But this kind of stuff is important to have around. It's definitely helpful. I mean, alcohol has a million uses. Peroxide, has a million uses. This you can treat wounds. You can put it on your hands as a sanitizer. You can mix it with aloe and make your own hand sanitizer. Peroxide, a little baking soda, and you can brush your teeth. My grandparents, for some odd reason, never bought toothpaste. When I stayed at their house for summers and weekends, we brushed our teeth with peroxide and baking soda. Not the most pleasant thing, but it got the job done. So I would suggest, maybe some of this kind of stuff as a redundancy or a backup, but certainly no I'm not telling you don't have a few extra tubes of toothpaste around. I didn't bring any down with me. They're, upstairs in an upstairs bathroom. We keep, we buy it in a box of, I think, 4 tubes at a time at Costco. But it's up there. But, simple things like, hand sanitizer. I know it comes in little packages. I saw Mike, I believe is his name, from Addicted to Tools. I watch his channel. He's a fairly new channel, good guy. He found on Amazon, I think it was, little like single serve packs of hand sanitizer, which are great. I don't have any of those. At some point, I'll probably look and see if they're available. But I have a couple of pump bottles of just hand sanitizer. We keep it in the bathrooms, so we keep a few of these around, on a regular basis. Not only in my prepping or preparedness section or shelf. We have it in our day-to-day lives. The same with the peroxide and the alcohol. It's part of our day-to-day, lives. But I just keep a few extra on hand, for emergencies. Soap, these you get, I don't even know where I got this, but, we find, bottles of pump soap. You can get them almost anywhere, Walmart, the dollar store. I know Marshalls and TJ Maxx and all that, and Home Goods. They all sell. The wife loves buying this stuff. We got it all over the house, and it's all different scents. She's the one that goes to the store and, oh, this is a good one. Let's get this one. So we have no shortage of these. And then, of course, I use one of these camping as well. It sits on the camp kitchen for, washing my hands, which is good because, when you're in a situation where, it's not quite the normal day-to-day routine, such as an emergency situation or a SHTF, or some sort of, apocalyptic, it all works together. It's all one category, in my opinion. Having this kind of stuff around, to be able to wash your hands, because again, I'm not a big fan of stomach bugs. I consider myself a pretty tough guy when it comes to, ailments and boo-boos. I work with bumps and bruises and scrapes, and the one thing that does put me down is a stomach bug. I don't know what it is. I can go to work and I can function with a head cold and a fever and a flu, and I'm miserable, but I can push through it. The stomach bug, that just drops me. I'm no good. I don't know if everyone's like that, but I know that's how I am. So having things like maybe some liquid hand soap or some bars of soap. I do keep bars of soap around. We don't use them very regularly, but I do keep them around, just in case. I do take them camping. I have one of those little plastic, soap container things that's in the camping gear that, when we walk up to the bathhouse to take a shower, you can take a bar of soap with you. It's a lot easier than trying to take a pump thing, to wash your body. And I don't use the loofah at campgrounds. I take a rag and a bar of soap and kind of go old school with it. And then of course, deodorant, that it just makes you not stink as bad. Obviously it's deodorant. But it's good to have it around. I keep a few extra sticks, on the shelf down here to where, when I run out in the bathroom upstairs, I grab one off the shelf. And then, the next time I'm at Walmart or Target or wherever, even the grocery store, but it's a little more expensive at the grocery store. I try not to buy it there. Sometimes you can catch it, on sale with the CVS points or the Walgreens points or whatever. So I do keep a few, sticks of that around. And then also, disposable razors. I don't use disposable razors regularly. I have the one that clips in the refills. It's a little nicer. It's got the 5 blades and, it shaves real nice. These, don't shave as nice, but they get the job done, and they're fairly cheap to buy. You can buy a pack of disposable razors, I think for less than $10, as opposed to the pack of refills for the one I use daily, or not so much daily, but the one I use more regularly. I think they're like $30 or $35 for that refill. That's outrageous for what this stuff is costing nowadays. So I would now I see why so many people have big long beards, is because this shit ain't cheap. I can't do the big beard. Once I get to about as far as I am now, it starts to get itchy. I can't take it no more. I got to shave it off. So keeping razors, as well as some toothbrushes. it's always good. These are Care One. I guess they came from Walmart. Uh, I keep a few packs of toothbrushes around. Um, when somebody needs their toothbrush replaced, I can just go dig one out. Or, if somebody comes to visit and they forgot theirs, I have some. But in an emergency situation, if it's prolonged, um, it's good to have this kind of stuff around just for hygiene purposes, as well as, like the dental picks with the little pick and the dental floss, for getting stuff out. The last thing you want to have is a tooth issue when there's no dentist available. I had a tooth issue once. 15 years ago, my wisdom tooth started giving me issues with the tooth in the very back. And, I actually had to get the wisdom teeth removed at that point, but it was giving me some issues. And I woke up one morning and it was swollen, hurt like hell. I'm like, what the hell is this? Never had a tooth issue in my life. One of the things that I see a great value in that maybe some people overlook is, Listerine or some sort of generic version of antiseptic. I mean, this stuff, it has a million uses. I mean, yeah, it does make your breath smell a little bit better because this one is mint flavored. I grabbed this just because it was mint flavor. It's not just mouthwash. I mean, it's an antiseptic. So you can pour this on a cut or a bug bite. You can put a little on a cotton ball and rub a mosquito bite, and it'll kind of relieve it a little bit. I've even, when camping, forget to bring toothpaste and just dip my toothbrush right in it. Not this one, it's still sealed. But literally, I've dipped my toothbrush right into this stuff and brushed my teeth just with that. But this stuff is great. It's an antiseptic. It's safe to use in your mouth or on your body. Doesn't taste the greatest, but it gets the job done, and it will keep you, fairly clean, and keep down the bacteria and the viruses. And of course, shampoo. I buy the cheap stuff. The wife uses the more expensive, shampoos, for the hair. I'm a fan of just the cheap stuff. It works for me. It does what I need it to do. And some of these, like the Suave brand, they're lesser expensive. I'm sure there's cheaper or lesser expensive brands out there. This is just the one that I have. I think I have 4 or 5 of these back on the shelf back there, which I have used in a pinch. Run out of shampoo upstairs, and you don't feel like going to the store. You got a couple of days till the weekend gets there when you can get to the store. I'll grab a bottle of this and throw it in the bathroom, and just replace it the next time I go. So I know it's not a fun subject, or it's not overly popular, but I do think it carries a value and a level of importance that a lot could overlook. Like I said, it's not as cool or tactical, as I like to say, as other subjects. And I do enjoy talking about those subjects, and I do. If you've watched my channel, I have a vast array of topics and subjects, that I discuss and share with you. This is just one of them. I thought about this the other day, and I thought, not too many people do videos on, like hygiene and stuff. So let me see what I can put together, and here we are. So not that much stuff. Not expensively or overly hateful to purchase. You get a little bit here, a little bit there. There's dollar stores, Walmart, Target, places like that you can pick this stuff up. I think this came from Walmart. I think I probably paid about $2 or $3 for this. I don't think it was very much. I've had it for quite some time. It's probably 5 years old or more. It's a lot more because it says it expired in 2015. Is it still good? I mean, it's perfectly clear, like it was when I bought it. It's still sealed. I really don't know if it's still good to use or if it's bad. I don't see why it would go bad. It may not be as potent as it was before it expired, because it doesn't say Best Buy. It just says expired. Expires on August of 2015. So I've had this for 10 years. Didn't even know that. It's one of those things that I stuck on the shelf, and I thought that really doesn't have to be rotated. Maybe it does. Maybe one day I'll open, one of these and see, what it tastes like or what it smells like. But, for now, in a pinch, I'm going to leave it sealed. if the situation where ever arises where I absolutely need this stuff, I'm sure I have some newer stuff. This one's probably newer. Uh, oh yeah, this one's from 2023. So this is fairly newer, and I do buy this stuff, to put in the camping gear and to put in the bathroom upstairs. Obviously I haven't rotated a lot of this as much as I should have. I should probably be better about that. But again, it's still perfectly clear. It looks exactly the way it did when it was brand new. There's no color change. So I'm assuming it's still good. And in a pinch, in a situation where my options were nothing or that, as long as this doesn't, when I open it, kind of give me the impression that it's bad for me or I shouldn't use it, I'm going to roll with it, expired or not, because again, it's better than nothing. So, I would think about uh, your hygiene, supplies, and what you have, and you don't have to have a lot because I mean we live in a fairly civilized society. If there is a situation, you got to ask yourself honestly, how long is it going to last? A couple of weeks, couple of months. I don't think we're going to end up in some dystopian society, like Mad Max or whatever that movie was with. I don't remember it, but anyway, I don't think we're going to go down that road. I think we're a bit more civilized of a civilization, and that there may be a bump in the road along the way, but I think at some point things will stabilize, and there may not be as many options out there, but I think the majority of the stuff will, end up becoming available in some fashion. Even if it's just a bunch of people making homemade soap, um, or somebody distilling, instead of running liquor through their still, they're making antiseptic or hand sanitizer or a diluted, because this is only 50%. I do have some 70%, but this is only 50. Somebody who's making a diluted version, because if we think back during COVID, a lot of the liquor companies that were distilling whiskey and liquor, they halted their liquor production and started making alcohol for hand sanitizer. They stepped up, and that's awesome, man. There should have been more focus put on that, because that was a good thing during COVID, um, as opposed to just people panicking and clearing off shelves. There were people out there that they were actually thinking, and thought, how can I help the community? How can I help my neighbors? How can I help people? Well, instead of me making whiskey, let's make hand sanitizer. To me, that was awesome. So, but it's good to have some of this stuff around, and I would certainly evaluate, what you have and how much, and kind of, base it on, your needs or the size of your family. And, the one thing I didn't mess with here was medications. I think that's a whole nother subject. I didn't want to get into that in this video. Just wanted to talk about, basic hygiene stuff, because, if you can wash your hands and brush your teeth, and wash your face, you're going to feel a little bit better day to day. If you weren't able to do those things, and you're going to severely lower your risk of neurovirus or bacterias or anything that could make you sick and make your situation worse than it already is. So, take it for what it is. I hope everybody starts thinking that, hey, I could get some Listerine, or, hey, a couple packs of toothbrushes or something. Um, and down the road, if the situation ever arises where, having this kind of stuff is necessary, and because you can't run to Walgreens or CVS and pick it up that day, that you'll have it on the shelf, and everybody's better for it. So for now, that's all I got. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you in the next one.